first lockdown order comes through at 6:12 a.m., and it sounds clean enough to trust. Stay indoors. Avoid all unnecessary travel. Keep doors locked. Monitor official channels. Wait for police, fire, or medical personnel. It runs through the state feed 3 times in the same calm voice while I stand in Studio B with one headphone pressed against my left ear and one hand on the old fader that sticks near the bottom. Outside the glass, Mara from production is still wearing her winter coat because the building heat has not caught up yet. She holds a coffee she has not touched. On the muted television over the rack room door, the mayor stands at a podium beside the police chief, the public health director, and 2 men in gray emergency management jackets. The captions lag behind his mouth. The message is simple, too simple. That is the first thing I notice, and I hate myself for noticing it, because simple keeps people calm. My name is Daniel Harper. I host the early block on WQRI, local news, weather, school closings, traffic, municipal nonsense, lost dogs, and all the ordinary things that make a city feel managed. We serve roughly 500,000 people if I count the suburbs that pretend not to depend on us. We are not a big national voice. We are the station people call when the bridge freezes, when the water main breaks under Jackson Avenue, when the high school boiler fails, when somebody's mother did not come home from the pharmacy. On a normal morning, the phone lines light up for potholes and missing cats. This morning, the first caller says her son is locked in the bathroom and will not answer her, and there is something wet on the inside of the door. I do not put her on air at first. I keep her on the producer line and ask Mara to patch dispatch, because that is what we do. We do not diagnose. We do not scare half a county. I tell the caller to step back from the bathroom door, keep the hallway clear, and stay on the phone. She tells me the official alert said to stay indoors. She is indoors. Her son is indoors. She wants to know whether she should open the door. I look at the printed advisory on the desk. It says nothing about not opening interior doors. It says nothing about bedrooms, bathrooms, relatives, elevators, stairwells, buses, shelters, holding cells, or waiting rooms. It treats every door in the city as the same object. It treats indoors as one place. At 6:20 a.m. we are instructed to carry the emergency message at the top and bottom of every quarter hour. I read it exactly the way it arrives. My voice sounds steady in the headphones. I give the weather after it because people cling to familiar order. 34 degrees, wind from the west, light freezing rain expected before noon. Traffic restrictions downtown, hospital access limited to emergency vehicles. I say all of it, and the whole time the woman on the producer line is whispering, "My boy is making sounds now. My boy is making sounds now." And Mara is pointing at the call screen because every line is filling. I take the first live call at 6:37 because dead air would be worse. A man named Curtis is calling from the 10th floor of the Fenton Arms apartments on McKinley Street. He says the hallway is full of people who came out after the alert. Some residents want to go downstairs and get mail, packages, carts, relatives, whatever got left in cars. Others are standing around arguing about whether the building should lock the lobby. He says somebody is sick on the 8th floor, and the elevator doors keep opening and closing because somebody put a chair in the track. He asks whether the city means stay in your apartment or stay anywhere inside the building. That is the first crack. I hear it while the public health director is still on television telling everyone to remain inside. I ask Curtis whether he is safe inside his own unit. He says yes. I ask whether anyone sick is inside his unit. He says no. I tell him to stay in that unit. Not the hallway, not the lobby, not the laundry room, and not the elevator. I say it without permission, and the room outside the glass goes still. Mara lowers her coffee. Our station manager, Owen Pike, steps into the doorway with his phone held flat against his ear. I do not look at him. I tell Curtis to put something heavy against his own door if he can still open it later. Turn the volume up on the radio, and call back if the 8th floor situation moves. When the call drops, Owen opens the studio door and says, "Off mic, do not freelance public safety guidance." I nod because he is my boss and because he is not wrong. Then I read the state alert again, word for word, and I can hear the fault inside it. Stay indoors, avoid travel, wait for authorities. Good advice if danger is outside. Bad advice if danger is already sitting on the couch, slumped in the bus seat, locked in the holding cell, lying behind the apartment bathroom door. standing in the shelter intake line with spit on his chin and no answer in his mouth. By 7 a.m., the city has stopped sending school closure notices because all schools are closed by order. The Transportation Authority suspends regular service, then reverses that order 5 minutes later and tells buses already en route to hold position until police can escort passengers home. That sounds organized on paper. On the ground, it means buses full of people sit at curbs, doors closed, while drivers get yelled at through glass. We get a call from a driver named Helen on Route 12, stopped under the overpass by Delancey and 3rd. She keeps her voice low. She says there are 31 people on board. One man is sweating through his shirt in the rear bench. Another passenger says the man bit him during an argument at the last stop. Helen says the authority dispatcher told her not to open the doors under any condition because the lockdown order is active and the street is unsafe. I ask whether the bitten passenger can move away. Helen says not far. People are standing in the aisle now. She has a plastic shield, a radio that keeps cutting out, and a button that calls transit control but not police directly. Behind her voice, I hear passengers talking over one another. A child starts crying, and an adult snaps at the child to be quiet. Helen says the sick man has gone quiet, very quiet. He is bent forward, his hands are hanging between his knees. She asks me if she should keep everyone contained. Contained is one of those words that sounds smart until it means trapping healthy people with the thing hurting them. I tell Helen I cannot override transit control. I say it because Owen is watching from the doorway. Then I ask her whether the front door can open separately from the rear door. She says yes. I ask whether the sick man is in the rear. She says yes. I tell her, on air, to keep the front clear. Tell passengers at the front to move out one at a time only if the outside path is empty, and do not let anyone push past the sick man in the rear. Owen puts one hand over his eyes. Mara writes front door only on a pad and turns it toward me through the glass. Not because I need it, because she needs to do something with her hands. At 7:22, Helen comes back. Her call is broken, full of wind and traffic noise. She says 16 passengers are off and moving into the tire shop across the street. 3 refused to move. One man tried to drag the bitten passenger with him because it was his brother. Helen shut the door on his sleeve and he cursed at her until another passenger pulled him away. She says police have not arrived. She says the sick man is standing now but not standing right. She does not say more. I do not ask for more. We move on because the phones will not stop. The first official warning about contact exposure arrives at 7:45 a.m. It says avoid contact with bodily fluids from symptomatic persons. It does not say bites. It does not say saliva. It does not say blood. It does not say what symptomatic means when half the city has a winter cough and no one slept right. The public health director still refuses to say infection. The mayor says civil order event. The police chief says aggressive medical distress. The state feed says unknown behavioral illness. Our callers use different words. Sick changed, wrong gun, dead but up. I do not use the last one on air. Not yet. At 8:10 a.m., a shelter volunteer named Priya calls from the Northside Recreation Center. The city opened it overnight because the freezing rain pushed unhoused residents indoors, and then the lockdown order told them to remain there. She says the gym has close to 200 people. The cots are packed tight. There is a line at the bathrooms. 2 men fought near the check-in table before dawn. One had a torn ear, one had blood on his coat, and the volunteer nurse isolated both behind a curtain near the supply closet because there were no rooms left. Priya says the curtain is moving even though no one behind it is answering. I ask whether the gym has interior rooms with solid doors. She says there are locker rooms, an office, a storage room, and a referee room with a key nobody can find. I tell her curtains are not barriers. She repeats that to someone else. Curtains are not barriers. I hear her voice change when she realizes how obvious it is and how many systems were built around pretending a cloth divider counts. She says the official shelter plan says isolate suspected cases. I say isolate means separated by a door or distance no one has to cross. Do not place sick people behind cloth in a room full of sleeping people. Do not ask volunteers to check on them alone. Do not move the whole crowd through one doorway if the problem is near that doorway. That is when the city calls the station the first time, not the mayor. not the police chief. A deputy communications officer named Linda Vale calls Owen and asks why our morning host is issuing unauthorized instructions. I can see Owen through the glass in his office, walking in a tight line from desk to wall, nodding. He points at me once, not angry, more frightened than angry. I keep reading the official statements. I add weather. I add road closures. I add that listeners should keep phone lines clear for emergencies and text us only if calling is impossible. Then I take another call from an apartment building where a man is trapped in the trash room because the hallway outside has something dragging 1 foot past the chute door. By 9 a.m., the city feels close even from inside the studio. I do not mean the streets. I cannot see much of the streets from Studio B, just the top edge of the parking deck and the blank side of the courthouse annex. I mean the city comes through the lines. A mother in Belden Towers whispering from inside a pantry with 2 children because her husband came home from urgent care and kept trying every doorknob in the apartment. A nurse from St. Agnes saying emergency department security is stacking chairs in front of the waiting room entrance because the hospital cannot clear the lobby. A jail clerk from county intake asking whether the lockdown order applies to prisoner transfer buses already inside the Sally Port. A father in a townhouse refusing to leave his bitten daughter in the garage because she is 12 and she is scared, and no official has told him what happens next. I say the same sentence in different ways for the next hour. Keep distance. Use solid barriers. Do not gather in shared spaces. Do not open a door just because someone you love is on the other side if that person is not answering normally. Talk through doors first. Ask for full names. Ask simple questions. Ask the person to step back. If he or she cannot answer, do not enter alone. If you must move, listen first. Look through glass. Use stairs only if the stairwell is clear. Avoid elevators unless you can see inside before entry. And do not crowd lobbies. I say it carefully. I say I am not replacing official orders. I say I am explaining how to follow those orders without putting yourself in the wrong room. At 10:11 a.m., we lose the television feed for 20 seconds. The studio monitors go blue. Mara swears in the hallway, then apologizes to nobody. Owen tells engineering to switch to the backup internet. The old rack in the back room clicks through relays, and for a moment we carry only our own signal and the state alert tone. It has been a long time since I feared that tone. It is usually a formality. Snow emergency, chemical spill, amber alert, flash flood warning. Now it sits under every word and makes even the coffee machine sound guilty. A caller named Raymond gets through from county jail. He is not supposed to call us. He says that twice. He is a maintenance supervisor, not a guard. He says intake filled overnight because police picked up people during the first disturbances, and then the lockdown froze the whole process. He says 4 holding cells have too many detainees. One man in cell 2 came in with a face injury from a bar fight before the order. He was placed with 11 others because there was no medical isolation left. Now cell 2 is quiet except for scraping at the floor drain and one man praying. Raymond says the jail plan says keep all detainees secured. He asks what happens when secured means everyone in the cell dies. I do not know what to say. There are moments when a human voice asks a question that cannot fit inside policy. Owen is in the doorway again. Linda from City Communications is now on line 4, holding visible in red on the call board. Mara looks at me, and I can tell she wants me to dump Raymond. Not because she lacks courage, but because some calls make the room responsible. I ask Raymond whether he controls doors. He says maintenance has mechanical access to some inner gates, but not the cell doors without a supervisor key. I ask whether staff can move healthy detainees 1 cell at a time after visual inspection. He says the sergeant refuses because the lockdown order says no movement. I tell him movement from danger to a locked safe cell is not release, it is containment. He says on air, tell that to the sergeant, so I do. I say if any detention supervisor is listening, a holding cell with an actively violent or infected person inside is not contained in a useful way if uninfected people remain trapped with him. Separate by observation and solid barriers. Move slowly. Use doors in sequence. Do not mix exposed and unexposed groups to save time. Document later. Keep people alive now. It is the most direct thing I have said all morning. Linda hangs up from line 4 before Owen can transfer her in at 10:30 a.m. The mayor gives another briefing. He says rumors are creating unsafe behavior. He says unauthorized media speculation has caused people to leave homes and crowd streets. He tells residents, again, to shelter indoors. Police will enforce the order. Fire and emergency medical services will respond by priority. Hospitals are under diversion. Do not self-transport unless directed by emergency services. Do not spread unverified claims. He never names our station, but Owen receives 3 texts before the briefing ends. He walks into Studio B during the weather break and says, "Danny, you need to cool it." I ask him what he wants me to do when callers are locked in with infected people. He says we do not know that word. I say fine, locked in with violent symptomatic persons. He rubs his face with both hands and looks older than he looked at 6 a.m. Owen is not a coward. He has kept this station open through floods, a courthouse evacuation, and the refinery fire that turned the east side sky brown for 2 days. But he understands licenses, lawsuits, chain of command, and the kind of trouble that arrives later wearing clean clothes. He says, read the advisories, let officials handle guidance. I say officials are giving one instruction for 600 different rooms. He says, then phrase it as common safety, doors distance, do not panic, do not play doctor. He leaves before I can answer. At 11 a.m. I change the format without asking. I keep the alert at the required intervals. Between alerts, I stop taking random calls and start sorting them into situations. Apartments, transit shelters, hospitals, detention, private homes, workplaces. I tell listeners to text location type first and details second. Not names, not long stories. Building type floor, number of people, sick person inside or outside your room, barrier type, and whether a safe exit exists. Mara builds a handwritten grid on a legal pad because our call software is not made for the end of civic simplicity. Studio B becomes a place where fear arrives in categories. The categories help. They also make the problem worse because now I can see it. The lockdown is not wrong because indoors is always bad. The lockdown is wrong because it assumes the threat is outside every door at the same time. In real life, some people are safer inside apartments. Some are safer outside a bus. Some are safer locked in offices. Some need to leave kitchens, laundry rooms, waiting rooms, elevators, bathrooms, shelter gyms, and holding cells. Safety is not a location. Safety is separation from exposure and control of movement. I do not say that exact sentence on air yet. It sounds too much like I know what I am doing. At noon, we are 12 hours into the story, even though the official clock says the lockdown began at 6:12. The first disturbances started before dawn. Police calls spiked at 3:48 a.m. St. Agnes saw bite injuries before 4:30. The bus system kept running through 5:50 because nobody wanted to strand workers in freezing rain. The shelters filled before sunrise because weather kills people even during a new emergency. The jail intake backlog began last night after a string of domestic calls and public fights. The infection was already inside the city before the city announced that inside was safe. Mara leaves the control room for 6 minutes at 12:17 to call her father. Her father lives alone on the east side, in a duplex with a bad back door and a neighbor who borrows tools without returning them. She comes back with her mouth set hard and her phone in one hand. She says he is fine. Then she says he will not stop going to the porch to look down the street. I tell her to call again during the next recorded alert and tell him to sit in the interior hallway with the radio on. She says he will say he knows his own house. I say let him say it with the door locked. The first day becomes a list of doors. Apartment doors with peepholes clouded by tape because someone thought tape stopped air. Bedroom doors with hollow cores that bow when furniture is pushed against them. Steel stairwell doors propped open by smokers before the lockdown and left that way after. Bus doors controlled by frightened drivers. Shelter doors locked from outside by staff trying to prevent panic. Jail doors that cannot be opened without making another door unsafe. Hospital sliding doors that keep trying to open for movement sensors until someone kills the power, and the lobby turns into a vestibule people cannot cross without help. At 1:06 p.m., a nurse named Melissa calls from St. Agnes and asks us to stop telling people to come to hospitals. I tell her we are telling people the opposite. She says not you, everyone. She says people heard lockdown and thought hospital meant official safety. They are arriving with scratches, fevers, coughs, panic, old injuries, no injuries, relatives in blankets and relatives tied into wheelchairs with belts. She says the emergency department has a police officer at the ambulance bay who has not sat down since morning. She says security is trying to divide the waiting room into exposed and not exposed, but nobody agrees on what exposure means. One man says he was not bitten because teeth did not break skin. Another says saliva on his hand does not count because he washed it in the restroom. A grandmother says her husband is only confused and always bites when he has dementia. Melissa says, "Tell people this is not a place to wait if they can isolate at home." I ask what people should do if someone is injured. She says, "Stop bleeding with clean pressure, call emergency services, do not bring a whole family into a crowded hospital unless directed, and do not carry a person who is biting or spitting into a public vehicle." She catches herself after saying that, maybe hearing how ugly it sounds, and her voice drops. I let silence sit for half a second, then I thank her by first name only and repeat the practical pieces. Clean pressure, call, isolate. Do not crowd waiting rooms. Do not move a violent symptomatic person through shared space unless responders tell you to and can receive him or her safely. Mara writes clean pressure on the pad. It feels small. It is still useful. At 2 p.m., Linda Vale from City Communications finally comes on air. Not because she wants to, because callers are quoting us back to City Hall faster than officials can dismiss it. She says residents must comply with lockdown orders. I ask her, politely, whether a resident should remain in the same room with a person who has bitten another resident. She says residents should avoid contact with symptomatic persons. I ask whether that means moving to another room and closing a door. She says, if safe. I ask what safe means in a locked apartment building. She says, Daniel, we cannot provide case-by-case guidance over the air. I say I understand, I do understand. That is the whole problem. Linda says official agencies are preparing updated household guidance. I ask when. She says soon. Soon is a dangerous word. I do not say that. I thank her and let her go. The updated household guidance arrives at 2:48 p.m. It is 2 paragraphs long. It says isolate symptomatic individuals in a separate room if possible. Avoid shared utensils, wash hands, use masks if available, call a medical provider. It reads as if flu season had grown teeth and learned doorknobs. It still assumes the symptomatic person will cooperate. It says nothing about a husband throwing himself into a pantry door while his wife holds a chair against it. It says nothing about a child who will not stop trying to hug her bitten mother. It says nothing about a landlord telling everyone to come to the lobby for instructions. It says nothing about bus passengers trapped by a policy written before the thing reached the bus. At 3:30 p.m., callers begin reporting that police are using loudspeakers in some neighborhoods. Stay inside locked doors. Do not approach officers unless called. Stay away from windows. A woman in the South Cut says the loudspeaker drew 3 infected people down the block because it echoed between row houses. I do not know whether that is true. I have heard enough strange audio through phone microphones today to trust very little. But after that call, I stopped telling people to yell for neighbors. I tell them to use phones, texts, intercoms, or knocks on shared walls only when necessary. Sound moves through buildings in ways people forget until danger starts following it. By 4 p.m., the first power failures hit the west side, not citywide, just pockets. A transformer near Bell Yard, a feeder issue around Granger, maybe a crash into a utility pole near the river. The utility spokesperson calls it weather-related with emergency access delays. In the apartments, power loss means more than darkness. Elevators stop. Electronic locks fail open in some buildings and fail closed in others. Hallway cameras die. Intercoms go quiet. People who waited for official rescue now have stairwells without lights and phones on low battery. I tell listeners to charge devices while they can gather shoes, coats, keys, water, medication, and a light in one place. Not because they are leaving now, but because panic wastes time later. Owen does not stop me. After the first city call, after the mayor's warning, after Linda's careful non-answer, he stops standing in the doorway. He sits in the control room beside Mara and takes notes. He has 2 phones and keeps one plugged into a power bank. At 4:25, he slides a note through the glass. It says, "Say station guidance, not medical advice." I nod and say it. It is a legal fig leaf. It is also true. I am not a doctor. I am a man in a soundproof room with too many people telling me where the official language fails. At 5:11 p.m., Curtis from Fenton Arms calls back. The 8th floor is gone, he says. That is his phrase. Gone, not destroyed, not burned. Gone in the sense that nobody answers there now except the wrong voices. He says the elevator stopped running after someone forced it on the 8th floor. People in the lobby heard banging in the shaft. He stayed inside his apartment. His neighbor across the hall tried to get her mother from the 7th floor and did not come back. He says my advice kept him from opening his door when someone scratched at it around 4:50. The scratching moved to the next door, then the next. Then the stairwell door slammed 3 times. He says he has a sofa and a bookcase against his door, but now he cannot leave even if rescue comes. I tell him not to block himself so completely. He cannot exit through the door if a confirmed safe escort arrives. He laughs once, no humor in it, and says, "You want me to move the sofa back?" I say not now, not if the hallway is active. But build a release plan. Clear the path from your door inward. Keep your keys on you. Put shoes on, fill containers with water if you still have water pressure. Tape is not a barrier. A mattress is not a lock. Furniture buys time but can trap you if fire starts or smoke enters. He says fire. He had not thought about fire. Neither had I until I said it. That is how the whole day works. Every answer reveals another way to fail. At 6 p.m., the state extends the lockdown through the night. Curfew begins at 7. All residents must remain inside. Emergency travel only. The wording changes slightly. It now says inside your residence or current secure location. That addition feels small, but it matters. Current secure location. Somebody argued for that phrase. Maybe Linda. Maybe a tired lawyer. Maybe a dispatcher who heard enough calls. It still does not solve buses, shelters, jails, hospitals, or homes with infected relatives. But it admits indoors is not a single category. The city gets colder after sunset, not physically inside the studio, though the heat still lags near the windows. The calls change. Daylight callers describe what they see. Night callers describe what they hear. Hallway footsteps with no voices. Elevator chimes stopping on floors nobody selected. Water running in the apartment above until it leaks through the ceiling. A bus horn stuck on for 8 minutes near Broad and Larkin. Shelter doors thudding. A child knocking from the wrong side of a bedroom door. A dog barking until it stops. People whisper because speaking normally now feels careless. At 7:38 p.m., a man named Joel calls from a duplex on Palmer Street. His wife was bitten by her brother that morning. They bandaged her arm, put her brother in the basement, and followed the lockdown order. His wife now has a fever and keeps insisting she needs to go outside. He locked the front door and hid the keys because he thought that was what he was supposed to do. Now she is in the kitchen with their 8-year-old son because the boy refused to leave her. Joel is in the living room, whispering into the phone, asking how to get his son away without upsetting her. This is where advice becomes ugly, not cruel. Ugly because every option hurts someone. I ask whether his wife is speaking normally. He says sometimes. I ask whether she has tried to bite or grab. He says she slapped his hand when he touched the boy's shoulder. I ask whether there is another adult. No. I ask whether the kitchen has 2 exits, back door and living room. I tell him to stand away from the kitchen entrance, speak calmly to his son, and give the boy a job that moves him toward Joel. Get the flashlight. Get your shoes. Bring me the charger. Something ordinary. Do not argue about his mother. Do not tell him she is dangerous unless he needs to move right now. Joel repeats charger. Charger. And then he puts the phone down without hanging up. For 4 minutes, we hear the room from his pocket or the table. A cabinet opens. Joel speaks softly. His wife tells him not to whisper. The boy says he cannot find the charger. Joel says it is behind the chair. A chair scrapes. The boy cries once, then swallows it. Joel says, "Good. Come here, buddy, come here." Then a hard sound against wood and Joel says, "No, close it, close it." The phone cuts. I sit with my finger above the dump button, long after there is nothing to dump. Mara's face has gone flat. Owen removes his glasses and cleans lenses that are already clean. Joel texts at 8:02, got him, in bedroom. Door blocked, wife kitchen, brother basement. Please tell people not to keep bitten family loose. I read that message twice before I say it on air. I remove his name. I say, if a person has been bitten and starts acting confused, angry, vacant, or physically unsafe, do not rely on promises. Use distance and a solid door early. Early is kinder than too late. The word kinder almost breaks me because I know how it sounds. I keep going. By 9 p.m., people are starting to blame each other, not in speeches. In small bursts, callers blame neighbors for propping doors, bus drivers for not opening, officials for locking down too late, relatives for hiding scratches, shelter staff for crowding cots, police for not coming, hospitals for turning cars away, radio for scaring people, radio for not scaring people sooner. Blame gives the mind a handle. It does not move furniture. It does not charge a phone. It does not clear a stairwell. I start using a phrase that Mara writes in block letters and tapes to the glass. Which side of the door? Every call comes back to it. Where is the danger right now? Which side of the door is it on? Is the door solid? Does it latch? Can it be opened from your side? Does anyone need to cross that space? What else is on your side? Water, medicine, child, injured person, exit, window, fire risk? Do not move because an order sounds general. Do not stay because an order sounds safe. Locate the danger. Put a barrier between you and it. Then decide. At 10:15 p.m., the station receives an official notice ordering all broadcasters to stop taking unscreened live calls related to the emergency. It cites public panic, misinformation, and interference with response. Owen reads it twice. He asks our attorney by text whether it is mandatory or advisory. The attorney replies with 4 words. Depends who asks later. Owen laughs once. It is not a happy sound. He comes into Studio B during a recorded alert and says we are going to screen harder, delay longer, and keep calls anonymous. He does not tell me to stop. I will remember that about him. At 11 p.m., I have been awake since 4. Mara has been awake since 3:30. Owen says he will take the chair for an hour, but his voice is built for underwriting spots and board meetings, not emergency radio. I stay. We rotate bathroom breaks with a ridiculous seriousness because nobody wants to leave the others alone. The station has 8 people inside now. Me, Mara, Owen, Jeff from engineering, Sonia from sales who came in early for a client meeting that will never happen, Reggie the overnight board operator who refuses to go home because his apartment is in Fenton Arms, Paula the receptionist who has become our text screener, and Luis from custodial who knows every storage closet and every mechanical noise in the building. Luis is the reason we have the loading dock door chained before midnight. Around 11:40, Luis tells us the alley door did not latch after trash pickup yesterday. He fixed it months ago, he says, but the strike plate shifted again. He shows Jeff and me on the security camera. The door is closed, but the little indicator reads fault. Outside, the alley camera has rain on the lens and no light except the fixture above the dock. We see a dumpster, wet pavement, and the back of the print shop across the alley. Nothing moves. Joff wants to go down and check it. Lewis says no. We check from inside first. He gets the long-handled floor scraper and jams it through the interior dock door handles so the door cannot swing even if the outside latch fails. Not elegant. Real better than confidence. At midnight, the first day ends by clock, but the first 24 hours of lockdown will not end until 6:12 a.m. I say that on air because people are already losing track. The emergency is stretching time. A woman thinks it is morning because she fell asleep at 5 p.m. and woke to hallway noise. A shelter volunteer thinks it has been 2 days because she has cleaned the same sink 6 times and never finished. A bus passenger who made it to the tire shop with Helen thinks curfew ended because he sees headlights outside. I tell people to write the date and time on paper when something important happens. Bite, fever, last water, battery level, door blocked, person moved, call made, mirror. Under stress turns soft. Paper does not fix fear, but it gives fear less room to edit facts. At 1:15 a.m., a police lieutenant calls off the record and stays off air. Owen puts him on speaker in the control room. The lieutenant says street enforcement is collapsing in pockets, not everywhere. He says officers are still working. Fire is still working. Emergency medical services are still working. But response is slower than the public can accept, and every dispatch category is wrong. Domestic disturbance becomes bite exposure. Welfare check becomes barricade. Medical assist becomes violent patient. Crowd control becomes shelter breach. He says the worst calls are the ones that followed orders too literally. Families staying with bitten relatives because nobody said leave the room. Apartment tenants entering hallways because the hallway was technically indoors. Bus drivers containing entire passenger groups with one infected person because the door was closed and the street was under lockdown. He says, keep saying the door thing. Then he hangs up before we ask his name. I go back on air with more care after that, not less. I tell listeners that police and responders are still operating, but no one should assume immediate rescue. I tell them to reduce new emergencies. Do not start cooking if you may need to leave the stove unattended. Do not burn candles near curtains or bedding. Do not run generators indoors or in garages. Do not tape over vents because you heard air is bad. Do not share rumors about airborne spread. Avoid fluid contact, wash if exposed. Cover cuts. Keep children away from sick adults. Keep pets contained if a hallway is unsafe. Use quiet signals with neighbors. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. Only if previously agreed. Do not open to random knocking at 2:07 a.m. The state feed finally uses the phrase close contact transmission suspected. It does not fully clear the air question, but it moves the guidance. Avoid bites. Avoid saliva. Avoid blood. Avoid direct contact with symptomatic individuals. The words arrive after thousands of people have already made first decisions without them. I read the notice, then add, suspected does not mean proven. Continue to avoid shared air in crowded spaces where possible, but do not trap yourself with a dangerous person because you fear hallway air more than teeth and fluid contact. I can hear Owen inhale from the control room. I do not look up. The night passes through fragments. Priya from the recreation center gets 42 people into the locker rooms and office corridor after the curtain area fails. She loses count of the ones who refused to move because leaving a cot felt worse than staying near the sound. Raymond from the jail never calls back, but another staff member texts that cell 2 was cleared in stages and 4 detainees were injured but alive when separated. Helen, the bus driver, texts a photo we do not show. The bus empty at the front, rear section smeared and still. Police lights outside, she writes. I should have opened sooner. Mara writes back from the station account. You opened when you knew. It is the only mercy we can give through a screen. At 4 a.m., I step into the hallway outside Studio B and the station smells of old coffee, wet coats, floor cleaner, and warm equipment. The building is a 2-story brick box from the 70s with a newer glass entrance. Owen hates because it leaks cold air. Studio B sits near the center. Studio A faces the street and looks impressive for guests. The transmitter link room is in back. The backup broadcast room is downstairs behind archives, originally built for tornado warnings and power failures. It has a small console, 2 microphones, an emergency transmitter path, bottled water from last year, expired crackers, a chemical toilet still in packaging, and a steel door with a deadbolt Luis installed after a burglary. I know this because we all toured it during safety training and then forgot it existed. Now Luis makes us remember. He takes Owen, Jeff, and me downstairs with flashlights, though the power is still on. We check the backup room, the latch, the hinges, the old phone line, the ventilation grill, the supply cabinet, and the second exit through the maintenance hall. Geoff tests the emergency path and gets a carrier tone. Owen says we should move some food down. Sonia says there are vending machine snacks upstairs. Louis says vending machine glass is loud and stupid. He finds a key in the office drawer and empties the machine calmly with a canvas mailbag, leaving a handwritten note taped to it because some part of him still believes in workplace rules. I do too. That is why the note hurts. At 5:30 a.m., City Hall sends us a new script. It includes some of our phrases with the edges shaved off. Stay in your current secure room or residence. Avoid common hallways unless necessary. Do not move symptomatic persons into shared spaces. Use solid barriers. Call emergency services before transport. The script does not say which side of the door. It does not say the first order trapped people. It does not say local callers taught City Hall faster than City Hall taught them. But it is better than the first script, and better matters. At 6:12 a.m., the first 24 hours of lockdown end and the second day begins. I mark it on air. I tell listeners that the order remains active, but the guidance has changed because evidence has changed. That sentence matters too. Evidence has changed. It gives people permission to stop worshiping the first instruction they heard. I say nobody should be ashamed of changing a plan when new facts arrive. A caller texts, "Tell my husband that." Another texts, "Too late." Another texts, "Thank you. My father is alive because we stayed in his bedroom, not the living room." I read only the first one, then move on. By morning, officials have names for zones. Red zone near St. Agnes and the East Bus Depot. Yellow zone around Northside Recreation Center, Fenton Arms, County Jail, and 3 residential clusters. Green routes for emergency vehicles that keep changing because abandoned cars block intersections. The words make maps look orderly. Our calls make the maps dirty. A green route can have a single infected person under a delivery van. A red zone can have a locked apartment with 4 safe people and enough water for a day. A yellow zone can be safe on the 3rd floor and impossible on the lobby level. The color is not the room. I almost say that on air, then decide it sounds too clever and skip it. At 8 a.m., the mayor returns to television. He looks worse. Makeup cannot hide lack of sleep. He thanks residents for compliance, praises first responders, condemns rumor, and announces household safety teams that will begin priority checks in multi-unit buildings. He says anyone with a symptomatic family member should keep distance and await instructions. A reporter asks whether the infection is inside locked-down residences. The mayor says the situation is dynamic. The police chief says officers have encountered multiple indoor incidents. The public health director says transmission appears linked to direct contact with bodily fluids. There it is. The thing Melissa told us from the hospital before noon yesterday. The thing bus drivers and shelter volunteers learned in worse ways. Now it has a podium. We take calls for practical verification. Dumb saliva on a jacket count? Avoid touching it barehanded, bag it or isolate it. Wash hands. Does a closed bedroom door count if the latch is broken? Not enough. Block it if needed, move away from it, do not sleep beside it. Can apartment neighbors share food through the hallway? Only if the hall is quiet, planned, fast, and 1 door opens at a time. Do not create a gathering. Should residents use elevators to evacuate elderly neighbors? Not unless the elevator is confirmed clear and controlled. Stairwells with doors may be safer if slow and coordinated. Should people bang pots from windows to signal? Not if sound is drawing infected movement. Use lights or signs if visible. Do not lean out far. Do not drop heavy objects onto sidewalks where responders may move. At 10:30 a.m., Sonia finds a stack of promotional tote bags in the sales closet and starts making go bags for each of us. Water, snack packs, first aid kit from the break room, masks, gloves, flashlight, batteries, station key copies, printed contact lists, marker, tape, 2 garbage bags. Lewis adds a screwdriver and a door wedge to each one. Geoff adds small radios from a giveaway box. Cheap battery units with our station sticker on the front. Owen wants to ration them. Lewis says a radio in a bag is not useful if the bag stays in an office during a bad exit. Owen lets him pack them. We are not heroes in that building. We are office people with a transmitter and bad backs. Geoff knows equipment but not medicine. Mara knows calls but not locks. Lewis knows the building but not radio boards. I know how to talk while afraid but not how to repair a door. Owen knows authority and negotiation. Paula knows every staff member's family because she works the front desk and listens better than the rest of us. Sonia knows how to make strangers do paperwork even when upset, which becomes useful when we start tracking who is in which room. We do not become a team because of speeches. We become a team because somebody has to refill the coffee. Somebody has to answer. Line 3. Somebody has to check the dock door, and somebody has to keep talking. At noon on the 2nd day, the calls shift again. Fewer people ask what is happening. More ask what to do next. That is worse in some ways because next requires resources. A man with diabetes has insulin in the refrigerator, but power is out. A woman in a 9th floor apartment has water pressure failing and a stairwell unsafe below the 5th floor. A shelter group has 1 working toilet for 60 people after moving out of the gym. A family in a split-level house has an infected grandfather contained in the lower den, but the only full bathroom is down there. A bus group in the tire shop has food from a vending machine and no heat. A jail worker says staff are exhausted and detainees are screaming for lawyers, doctors, mothers, cigarettes, and God. Practical advice becomes less dramatic and more important. Fill tubs if water still runs. Do not drink from toilet tanks if cleaners are used. Use trash bags and buckets if toilets fail. Seal waste. Keep it away from food and sleeping areas. Eat perishable food before shelf-stable food if power is out. But do not cook if cooking creates fire risk or smell that draws people to your door. Keep medication schedules written down, rated watch in pairs if possible. Do not let the most tired person hold the only key. Do not use all phone battery recording videos. Text beats calling when networks strain. A quiet building is not automatically safe. A loud building is not automatically lost. At 1:20 p.m., City Communications calls again. This time Linda does not sound polished. She asks whether we can push a message about apartment intercoms. Fire crews are reaching buildings and finding residents crowding lobby doors because someone buzzed every unit and yelled evacuation. In some buildings, evacuation is necessary. In others, the lobby is the worst point. She wants us to tell residents to wait for unit-specific instructions where possible. I ask her whether I can say do not enter hallways until responders identify your floor or your side of the building. She says yes. I ask whether I can say building managers must stop calling whole building meetings. She pauses, then she says yes, say it, so I say it hard. If you manage a building, do not summon residents to a lobby, laundry room, mail room, or office for general instructions. Use intercom, phone tree, posted notes only where safe, or floor-by-floor communication. Do not prop stairwell doors. Do not disable locks without a plan. Do not send untrained residents to check noises. Do not combine floors to make counting easier. Count by phone, count by closed-door response. Count later if counting creates exposure now. That last sentence becomes another taped note on the glass. Count later if counting creates exposure now. At 2 p.m. we get our first clear report that advice saved a whole group. It comes from a maintenance woman at Briar Court Apartments, a low brick complex near the river. Yesterday, residents wanted to gather in the courtyard after the lockdown because one unit had an infected tenant and everyone wanted information. The maintenance woman heard our broadcast and refused to unlock the courtyard gate. She used the old intercom panel instead, called each unit, marked answers on a clipboard, and told residents to hang towels from windows if a phone did not work. She found 2 units with exposure, 3 elderly residents needing medication, and 1 empty unit with a bathtub overflowing. No mass hallway meeting, no lobby crowd. When responders arrived, she handed them a floor list through the leasing office window. She says, "I did not know I could say no to everyone. You told me I could. I almost say no. You did that." I catch myself because too much comfort can sound fake on air. I say, "You made a controlled plan with the tools you had." That is exactly what people need to do. Then I ask for practical details. She used a clipboard, unit list, intercom, window signals, and 1 runner only after confirming the hallway was clear. She wore dish gloves because that was all she had. She did not enter exposed units. She did not let residents hand her loose items. It is not perfect infection control. It is not hospital-grade anything. It is a person making fewer bad openings. On day 2, fewer bad openings is victory. At 3:30 p.m., the station's front glass rattles. Not breaks. Rattles, everyone freezes except the board, which keeps running a recorded advisory in my own voice. Paula is at reception, far too close to the front. Owen motions her back. She moves slowly, not wanting to make chair noise. The camera above the entrance shows 2 people outside under the awning, soaked from freezing rain. One wears a delivery jacket, one wears no coat. The one without a coat presses both hands to the glass and leaves streaks I do not describe on air. The delivery driver is alive, speaking, begging to be let in. We cannot hear the words from the control room, but his mouth forms pleas again and again. This is the rule turning on us. We have spent 33 hours telling people that doors matter. Now there is a living person on the wrong side of our front door with an infected person beside him. The station lobby has a glass entrance, then a short vestibule, then an interior door with a badge reader. If we open the first door, the infected person can enter the vestibule. If we do not, the driver may be hurt in front of us. Lewis says do not open both. Jeff says we can unlock the outer door remotely and keep the inner locked, trapping the first space. Owen says if the infected follows him in, we have created a problem against our own building. Paula says the driver has a cut on his cheek. Mara says he is looking at the camera. He knows we can see him. I go on air because silence would leave listeners alone with imagination, and because I cannot help the man at the door by staring. I tell listeners we have a situation at the station and will continue recorded guidance for a few minutes. I do not give our address. Owen takes the lobby intercom from reception and speaks through the exterior speaker. We can hear his side only. Step away from the other person. Move to your right. Keep your hands visible. Do not touch the door. The driver looks toward the speaker. and nods too fast. The infected person turns toward the sound and slaps one hand against the glass. The driver flinches and backs into the corner by the newspaper box. Lewis tells Owen to stop talking. Sound is holding the infected at the glass. Owen stops. The infected person keeps touching the door for a few seconds, then turns toward movement on the street. The driver slides along the wall, away from the entrance. Geoff unlocks the outer door for 2 seconds only after the infected has moved several yards off. The driver pulls it open, slips into the vestibule, and Geoff locks it before the infected turns back. The driver is now in the glass box between doors, safe from the street but not inside with us. He is shaking so hard his fingers tap against the inner glass. Owen uses the intercom again, quieter now. He tells the driver to show the cut. The driver wipes his cheek with his sleeve. It is not a bite, it looks like glass or a fall. But his sleeve is dirty, and none of us trust looks anymore. We keep him in the vestibule for 20 minutes. That sounds cruel unless you spent the last day hearing what one rushed door can do. We pass him a mask and gloves through the document slot in the inner wall. The little metal tray once used for contest forms and mail. Sonia asks screening questions from 6 feet back. Bite? No saliva in eyes or mouth? No blood contact? Maybe he carried a woman who fell near his truck. Fever? No. Confusion? No. Injury? Cheek cut, scraped palm. We give him wipes, bandages, water, and a chair. We do not let him beyond the inner door until Luis clears the lobby, and Owen assigns him to the conference room with the door open at first, then closed after observation. His name is Mark. He delivered printer toner to the courthouse yesterday and never made it home. I tell the whole story on air in pieces after we secure him, without his name. Not for drama, for process. A 2-door vestibule can protect both sides if used correctly. Do not open inner and outer doors together. Scree before entry. A visible injury is not automatically infection, but do not ignore exposure. Give aid without surrendering barriers. Speak less if sound draws infected movement. If you help someone, create stages outside. Vestibule, entry, observation, then shared space. This advice will anger people. It should. It asks them to delay compassion by minutes that feel inhuman. It also may keep compassion from killing everyone in the room. At 5 p.m., Linda calls to ask where we got the vestibule procedure. I tell her we invented it because a man was at our door. She is quiet, then asks me to repeat it slower. I do. Outside controlled entry, locked at intermediate space. Raining aid through slot or small opening. Observation, no crowded entry. She says emergency management is adding it to facility guidance. I want to be proud. Instead, I think of every small business with one glass door and no vestibule. Every house with children behind the person opening. Every church basement shelter with one stairway and no controlled space. The second evening is worse than the first because people have had time to make wrong plans with confidence. A homeowners association in Oak Terrace organized a supply exchange in a clubhouse and created 15 exposures when one resident brought her bitten husband because she did not want to leave him alone. A church shelter tried to move all symptomatic people to the basement but used one staircase, causing crowding at the landing. A hospital overflow site accepted walk-ins without separating exposed from unexposed, then locked the doors after a disturbance, trapping staff with patients. A police substation opened its lobby as a warming area, then had to clear it under stress. None of these people are stupid. They are using old emergency habits for a new pattern. Old emergency habits are hard to kill. Fire drill, leave the building. Tornado, move to interior shelter. Snowstorm, stay inside. Active threat, lockdown. Pandemic, distance. Masks, stay home. This outbreak steals pieces from all of those and punishes anyone who picks only one. I do not phrase it that cleanly on air. I say do not use a plan because it worked for a different danger. Check what the danger is doing now. Fire still means leave smoke and flame. Cold still means preserve heat. Injury still needs pressure and care. Infection risk means distance from fluid contact and unsafe behavior. Lockdown means limit movement, not ignore danger in your room. At 8:45 p.m., Mark in the conference room starts crying, not loud, just bent forward with his elbows on his knees, gloves still on, cheek bandaged badly because none of us wanted to touch him too much. Paula sits outside the door and talks to him from the hallway. She does not say everything will be okay. Paula is too honest for that. She asks his wife's name, Carmen. She asks his son's age, 6. She writes both on a pad and asks for their address. He gives it. Owen forwards it to the city contact list. Maybe it helps. Maybe it disappears into a queue with 10,000 other names. But Mark sees it written down and stops tapping his foot. At midnight, the second night begins with a storm. Freezing rain ticks against the studio window and coats the parking deck rail. Sirens become less frequent, not because things are better, because travel is harder and dispatch is rationing movement. The city feed warns that emergency response may be delayed for extended periods. Extended periods means hours, maybe more. The feed says residents should prepare to remain in current secure locations through the next day. This time it says current secure locations, not indoors. The language has learned, but slowly. Around 1 a.m., callers begin asking about sleep. It sounds absurd until you remember bodies do not care about disaster schedules. People have been standing by doors for hours. Potkrents have children awake past reason. Shelter volunteers are making mistakes because hands shake and tempers tear open. I tell people to set watches if safe. One awake, others resting in clothes, shoes near feet, keys on body, phone charging within reach, light covered or low, barrier checked before sleep. Do not sleep in hallways. Do not sleep in cars unless the car is in a safe location and ventilation is clear. Do not leave candles burning. Do not let the person most likely to panic take first watch. If someone steadier is available, is not surrender. Sleep is a task. At 6:12 a.m., 48 hours have passed since the first official lockdown order. I say the number slowly. 48 hours. Not 2 days, because 2 days sounds manageable. 48 hours sounds used. The city is used. Our building is used. The people inside are starting to smell of stress, old coffee, damp socks, and hand sanitizer. We have trash bags taped shut in the hallway because regular pickup stopped. The bathroom sink drains slowly. Geoff has slept 40 minutes under the engineering desk. Mara has not slept and now speaks in a voice that makes every sentence sound pre-cut. Owen has stopped answering some official calls because Linda texts faster and more honestly than formal lines. Luis checks doors every half hour and marks each check on blue painter's tape. The morning briefing on day 3 is shorter. The mayor is absent. The deputy mayor reads. She says the mayor is coordinating from the Emergency Operations Center. She does not say whether he is sick, moved, or hiding from cameras. The public health director says close contact fluid exposure is the primary known route. The director says airborne transmission is not indicated by current evidence. That sentence should comfort people. It angers some instead. Callers ask why they were told to tape vents, wear masks indoors with family, avoid opening windows and stay in crowded shelters. I tell them early guidance changes when facts change. I also say changing facts does not erase damage done by broad rules. Owen looks at me. I keep going. The point is not to find one villain before breakfast. The point is to stop repeating the first mistake. At 8 a.m., we begin the most useful block we have done. Room-by-room logic, kitchen, water, knives, fire risk, exterior door in some homes, slippery floor, food bathroom, water, lock, poor exit, hard surfaces, medicine cabinet. No second way out in many units, bedroom, rest, clothing, often hollow door, windows, bedding for blocking drafts but not secure barrier, hallway. Shared risk, no ownership, many doors, sound travel. Stairwell, vertical route, doors matter. Can trap noise and movement, avoid if unknown. Elevator, blind box, power risk, door opens into unknown floor. Used only under control, lobby. Mail, glass, people gathering, high exposure basement. Storage, utilities, poor exits. Easy to trap yourself, garage, tools, vehicles, fumes, doors, noise. It is not dramatic. It may be the closest thing to public safety we can give. At 10:15 a.m., the radio building receives a delivery of official scripts by police courier. Not email, paper. A young officer pulls up in a cruiser with a cracked windshield and parks sideways across the front spaces. He does not come to the glass. He leaves the envelope in the vestibule after we cycle the doors. He looks at Mark through the glass, and Mark looks back from the conference room doorway. Neither says anything. The officer's left sleeve is torn at the cuff. He has a strip of silver duct tape around one boot. He moves with the careful economy of a person saving energy for the next bad minute. The new scripts are better, much better. They include exposure definitions, household isolation, building manager instructions, shelter separation, transit passenger guidance, jail and detention language, hospital diversion language, and controlled entry procedures. Some lines are ours, some are Melissa's, some are from callers whose names officials will never know. The scripts also include an instruction for broadcasters. Avoid improvisation beyond approved language. Owen reads that line aloud and then places the packet on the console beside me. He says, "Approved language is catching up because someone improvised." Do not make me regret saying that. I say I will not. It is a promise I may not be able to keep. At noon, the city opens controlled relief points, not shelters, relief points. Parking lots with police, fire, public works trucks, portable toilets, water pallets, and medical screening. Residents are told not to go unless directed by zone message or responder contact. This is good. It is also dangerous because people hear water and leave too early. We spend an hour explaining directed movement. Do not self-deploy to relief points through unknown streets. Wait for route confirmation. Travel in small household groups. Cover wounds. Keep distance. Do not bring symptomatic persons without prior responder direction. Do not abandon locked dependents, children, disabled relatives, or pets without arranging help. Do not turn a relief point into a crowd because you fear missing supplies. Supplies can run out. Crowds can create exposure faster. At 3 p.m., the station loses water pressure. The restroom taps cough air, then brown water, then nothing. Luis fills the last clean containers from the break room sink before it dies completely because he had been watching pressure fade. We have enough bottled water for maybe a day if careful. The toilet becomes a managed problem instead of a background fact. Sonia labels one restroom liquid only and another closed. Louis sets up the chemical toilet downstairs but keeps it sealed until necessary. Office life ends not when monsters break glass, but when plumbing stops pretending civilization is automatic. At 4 p.m., Mara finally sleeps on the floor of the production room, with her coat under her head and her phone in her hand. Paula covers texts. Mark, the delivery driver, asks if he can help. Owen almost says no because Mark is not staff. Then the phones light up again and nobody has the luxury of categories that old. Mark starts sorting messages by neighborhood. His handwriting is awful. He is careful anyway. At 6 p.m. we reach 60 hours. The city feed says infection clusters are being contained. The word contained returns, cleaner than it deserves. I read it, then I say containment means separating danger from people, not simply locking doors around everyone. I do not know whether that counts as improvisation. Nobody calls to stop me. At 7 p.m., the courthouse annex alarm starts. A steady exterior horn, not loud enough to drown the studio, loud enough to pull movement on the street. We see infected persons turn toward it from half a block away. The alarm likely comes from a broken door sensor or power fault. It runs for 19 minutes. During those 19 minutes, every plan on our block changes. The infected near the municipal steps drift toward the annex. That clears Angela's front entrance briefly, but no responders are there, and the alarm draws more from Sid streets. Sound creates openings and closes them. We say that on air. A loud distraction can move danger, but it can also gather danger. Do not create noise unless you know where you will go next. At 8:15 p.m., the first infected reaches our loading dock. We do not see entry. We hear a dull hit from the back of the building, then another. Louis is already moving before anyone speaks. He checks the camera. The alley lens shows one figure at the dock door, maybe drawn by our generator test earlier, or by the courthouse alarm, or by simple wandering. The dock door is steel, but the exterior latch is suspect and the interior bar is the floor scraper through the handles. Louis says it will hold against one. Geoff asks what if more come. Louis says then it holds until it does not. Good engineering, honest version. I go on air and keep my voice steady by focusing on consonants. I tell listeners that our building has confirmed infected presence at one exterior door, and we are following the same guidance we have given them. Identify location, confirm barrier, reduce sound, prepare secondary space. Do not crowd the door. Do not open to inspect. Move supplies before movement is urgent. Keep broadcast operating if possible. I can tell the staff hears itself in those words. Sonia grabs the go bags. Paula prints the latest contact list. Mark carries water downstairs. Mara wakes confused, reaches for her phone, then stands when she sees our faces. At 9 p.m. there are 3 at the loading dock, 1 at the front. The vestibule glass has held so far, but each hit leaves marks and small cracks near the edge where the frame meets the pane. The infected do not coordinate. They do not plan, they respond to sound, movement, pressure, maybe memory of entrances, maybe nothing we can name. The result still threatens the building, is not required for damage. That is another thing people get wrong. Something does not need to hate you to break the door. Linda calls at 9:20 and tells us to evacuate to the emergency operations annex if we can reach the green route behind the courthouse. Owen asks whether the route is confirmed clear. She says it was clear 20 minutes ago. Owen asks whether a unit is outside now. She says no. He says then we are not moving 8 people and 1 screened civilian into an alley with infected at the dock. Linda says the station is a priority communications asset. Owen says then help us keep broadcasting. She says backup room. He says already preparing. She is quiet for a second, then says good. Her voice cracks on the word. We move downstairs in stages. Studio B remains live with me at the console while others carry supplies to the backup room. Then Mara takes the mic and reads recorded guidance while I move. It is the first time her voice goes out live today. She sounds younger than she is for the first sentence, then steadies. She tells people not to wait until the door is failing to decide where the next room is. She tells them to move water, medication, keys, and communication before fear makes everyone grab random things. She does not say her father still answers. She does not say she has not slept. She says what helps. The backup room smells of dust, cardboard, and warm plastic. The console is small enough that my elbows nearly touch Owen's notes. Geoff patches the emergency path and curses softly at a connector until it seats. The room has no window. The steel door opens inward. Luis likes that because pressure outside will not push it open. He dislikes the ventilation grill because it connects to the maintenance hall. He tapes a filter pad over it and sets a metal shelf in front. Not because air is the main route, because small access points become big worries when trust leaves a building. We keep the main studio feed alive until 10:03 p.m. Then Jeff cuts us to backup. There is a click in my headphones, a drop in tone, and then my own room becomes the city again. I say, this is WQRY operating from backup broadcast. We are still here. Use current secure location guidance. Do not come to the station. Do not come to any broadcast facility. Continue to use emergency services first where available. Text only if calls fail, then I stop and listen. The building above us creaks in normal ways and abnormal ways. Pipes, footsteps from staff, hits at doors, distant glass. No one speaks in the room. At 10:30 p.m., the front vestibule glass breaks. We know from the alarm panel first, then from the sound traveling down the stairwell. The exterior glass breaks, not the interior lobby door. That means infected are in the vestibule, not yet in reception. Which side of the door? Always, the rule is not comforting, it is useful. Lewis has already locked the stairwell door from the lobby level and blocked the basement side with a filing cabinet. Jeff kills non-essential speakers upstairs because our own monitors may draw movement. Owen texts Linda. Exterior breach, interior holding, backup active, no evacuation route, she replies. Copy then, stay if secure. The word stay finally has a condition attached. At 11 p.m., calls come from people at the edge of collapse and people at the edge of rescue. Fire crews clear 2 floors of Fenton Arms, but not Curtis's floor yet. Priya's shelter group reaches the school gym, where classrooms give better separation than one big room. Melissa from St. Agnes says the hospital has established an outdoor triage lane under police control, then says it is not enough, but it is less wrong. Raymond from the jail finally texts through someone else's phone. Alive Bog Night. Your cell advice kept lawsuits alive too. It is the first joke I have seen from him. I read it privately and smile for 1 second. At midnight, the final day begins. 66 hours since lockdown. 6 hours to 72. Numbers matter because people need edges. I tell listeners to plan for morning light but not depend on it. Dawn improves visibility. It does not remove infected from hallways. Official checks will expand after daylight where routes are held. If your current room is secure, do not rush out because the clock reaches a round number. If your room is failing, do not stay because a broadcast says relief is coming. Check the actual door. Check the actual person beside you. Check the actual stairwell. The city is not one condition. Your room is the first condition. At 1:15 a.m., the infected reach the basement maintenance hall. We hear them through the blocked door first. Irregular contact against metal. Then scraping along the lower panel, the backup room goes still. Mark grips the chair so hard his bandaged palm stains the wrap. Paula turns her phone face down. Mara writes something on paper and folds it. Lewis gestures for everyone to stay away from the door. Geoff lowers the monitor volume another notch. Owen looks at me and points to the mic. Keep talking. So I do. I talk about interior fallback. If danger reaches the outer room, move to the next secure room before the barrier fails. Do not wait to prove bravery. Do not crowd the new barrier. Keep the quietest person near communication. Keep tools where hands can find them. If someone is exposed during movement, separate early. If someone refuses separation, assign distance, not debate. If you must choose what to carry, carry water, medication, keys, phone, light, and child before property. Leave replaceable things. Do not film when hands are needed. Do not open a successful barrier to retrieve an object. At 2 a.m., the maintenance hall door holds. The hits come and go. Maybe one infected. Maybe more moving through. The steel door to our backup room has not been touched. That matters. We are not dead because something is in the building. We are at risk because something is in the building. Difference matters. I say that on air too. Presence is not the same as contact. Contact is not the same as exposure. Exposure is not the same as infection, but it must be treated seriously. Categories keep people from giving up. Categories keep people from doing stupid brave things. At 3 a.m., we receive a relay from emergency operations. A controlled corridor is forming west of downtown. Broadcast facilities may be evacuated after dawn if secure movement is possible. Owen reads it and says we wait for confirmation at the door. Lewis says we wait for eyes, not hope. Geoff says the transmitter can be controlled remotely from the backup room if power holds. Mara says power never likes being discussed. 3 minutes later, the lights flicker. Nobody laughs. The generator catches after a delay that feels longer than it is. Fuel status. Unknown beyond the gauge Geoff can access from the panel. Enough for hours, not days, depending on load. He shuts down every non-essential circuit we can spare. At 4:10 a.m., there is a voice in the maintenance hall. Human male, calling hello, calling station, calling help. We all look at Mark because he was the last stranger we let in, though that is unfair and we know it. The voice says he is city maintenance. He says he came through the service tunnel. He says open up. Lewis shakes his head before Owen even moves. There is no service tunnel to our building. There is a utility crawl, locked from our side and too small for a person to walk through. The voice may be confused. It may be a trap by a desperate human at another door. It may be someone in the hall with infected nearby. It may be a recording from a phone. We do not know. We do not open. I speak into the mic and into the room at the same time. Do not open to a voice that cannot verify location, identity, and safety. Ask questions through the barrier. Ask what door he is at. Ask what he sees. Ask for a call back from a known number. Do not let the sound of a human voice erase the map you already confirmed. Owen uses the internal speaker by the maintenance hall, volume low, and asks the man to identify which door he is at. The voice answers, the back one. We have 3 back doors depending on who is talking. Owen asks what color the door is. The voice does not answer correctly. Then the scraping starts again, closer. The human voice stops. We never learn what it was. At 5 a.m., dawn begins to thin the dark outside, though we cannot see it from the backup room. We know because callers start describing windows again. Gray light in kitchens, ice on cars, smoke from a house fire near Mercer, police tape across a pharmacy lot, a school bus used as a barricade near Northside, people at windows holding signs, water, meds, 3 inside, bitten in garage, baby oxygen, do not open hall. The city has become written messages behind glass, not poetic, practical. Paper is quiet, face out. A sign can speak without opening a door. At 5:30, Linda tells us a police and fire team is 3 blocks away, not coming yet. 3 blocks away, clearing building by building. She says if our basement remains secure, stay put until direct contact. Owen thanks her. Then he asks about the municipal building. Darius and his mother reached the medical point. Priya's shelter group registered. Fenton Arms partial clearance ongoing. Curtis not yet confirmed. Helen, the bus driver, transported for evaluation after refusing to leave until every passenger at the tire shop was counted. Linda gives these updates because she knows we need names attached to the map, not full names. Enough at 6 a.m., 71 hours and 48 minutes after the first lockdown order. The maintenance hall goes quiet. Quiet is not automatically good. I have said that all day. Still, everyone in the room reacts to it. Heads lift, hands pause. Louis puts one ear near the door but not against it. Geoff checks the camera feed from the hall and gets static. Owen texts Linda, no answer. Mara writes the time on the wall with tape because paper is full. 6 a.m. hall quiet. That is all. Facts, not comfort. At 6:12 a.m. we reach 72 hours. I mark the time. I do not play music. I do not use the emergency tone because the tone draws nothing useful now. I say, this is Daniel Harper at WQRY. Backup broadcast, 72 hours after the first lockdown order. The order told this city to stay indoors. For some people, that saved lives. For others, it trapped them with the first infected person they ever saw. The rule was too broad. The danger was already inside too many places. Homes, buses, shelters, hospitals, holding cells, hallways, offices. A locked door helped only when the danger was on the other side. I pause because I can hear someone crying quietly behind me. Maybe Paula, maybe Mark. I keep my face toward the mic. The final minutes of a broadcast do not allow comfort to become messy. Not yet, I say. Here is the rule we learned the hard way. Lockdown is not safety by itself. A building is not safe because it has walls. A room is not safe because an official used the word indoors. Safety begins when you know where the danger is, when a real barrier stands between you and it, when you stop moving through shared spaces without reason, and when you change your plan because the facts in front of you changed. Do not gather because you are scared. Do not open because a voice begs you to. Do not stay beside a bitten person because leaving feels cruel. Do not leave a secure room because the clock says morning. Check the door, check the person with you, check the route. Then act at 6:20. A responder knocks on the outer basement door in the pattern Linda gave us by text 20 minutes earlier. 3 knocks, pause. 2 knocks, our call letters spoken once. Owen answers through the barrier. The voice gives badge number, unit, and Linda's phrase, current secure room. We still do not open until Luis checks the camera. Jeff gets back online by hitting the side of the monitor with his palm. 2 firefighters in masks and turnout gear stand in the hall. 1 police officer behind them. No infected visible, door control in place behind them. A real escort, not hope. We leave the backup room in order. Owen first to speak to responders. Louis next because he knows the building. Geoff with the transmitter remote kit. Mara with the call sheets. Paula with the contact lists. Sonia with the go bags. Mark with both hands visible because he still thinks someone will decide he does not belong. I stay until the handoff recorder is running. I leave a looped message ready in the system. WQI is operating under emergency relay. Follow official instructions. Use current secure location guidance. Do not come to the station. The basement hall smells of damp concrete and something worse from beyond the blocked door. I do not look long. Looking does not improve the route. The firefighters move us through the service exit, not the lobby. Outside air cuts through my shirt and the morning is gray, wet and full of small sounds. Radios, engines, boots on ice, someone calling from a window, a distant alarm with a weak battery, a dog behind a fence. The city is still here, damaged, interrupted, not gone. That matters, but not enough to relax. They move us to a public works annex 6 blocks west where emergency management has a temporary broadcast table set inside a training room. It is not a studio. It has folding chairs, a dirty whiteboard, 2 portable transmit links, coffee in a metal urn, and maps taped to the wall with corners peeling from moisture. Linda is there. She looks at me once, then at Owen, then back at me. She says, "You caused us problems." Then she says, "You solved some too." I tell her the callers solved them. She does not argue. At 8 a.m. I go back on air from the annex. My voice is rough now. I do not hide it. Hiding it would waste effort. I tell the city we have relocated under escort. WQRI remains on emergency relay, and official guidance now includes controlled room assessment, exposure separation, and building-specific movement. I read the updated script. It is good, not perfect, good. Then I add 1 sentence, Linda does not stop. If you remember nothing else from the first 72 hours, remember this. Lockdown is not safety unless the danger is on the other side of the door.